Welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. This is the NFL edition. I'm your host, Sam Kelty, and today we're going to be talking about NFL free agency. So technically, NFL free agency starts on March 13th. That's this Wednesday. But right now, the teams are making deals in place that will go into effect on March 13th. So none of these are official yet. Well, they are official, but they're not official because of March until March 13th, when it's actually the new league turnover and you can actually sign pen to paper. The teams have agreed on principle with players, which will be set. And there have been some big moves. Let's start off the back. I'm excited. The new NFL season's coming up. We're playing in a dynasty league this year. Me and my co-hosts and some of our friends. So it'll be insane to see some of these players on different teams. So, and how free agency will impact the draft. And I said in the last episode that I will come out with a post mock 7 draft after free agency kind of starts wrapping up once we hit like the week before the NFL draft, because technically free agency doesn't end until start of training camp, but you see less moves and big players on the move and stuff once we get closer to draft, because once the draft happens, then they kind of fill all the holes that they didn't fill in free agency and who they're going to get. So starting off the day, big moves, probably the biggest move of the day, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley leaves the New York Giants and signs with the Philadelphia Eagles for 3 years for $37.75 million. Big move for Saquon Barkley. And we're talking about a guy going from the Giants to the Eagles, a rivalry in the division between the Eagles and the Giants, and Eagles go out and get Saquon Barkley. That's showing that Nick Sirianni and that front office, with them going out and get big free agents and trading for big players like A.J. Brown, drafting Devontae Smith, re-signing Dallas Goedert, letting Miles Sanders go and getting DeAndre Swift last year, and then going out and getting James Bradbury in a trade a year ago, Kevin Byard, who they got last season midway through the trade deadline, who they just recently released, and I'll touch on where he went later. But they're kind of in a win now mode. You're putting Saquon Barkley on this team, which is, we're talking about the Eagles, who we kind of seen a lot over the last maybe week and a half. Going back to last week with Jason Kelce retiring, having big shoes to fill on that offensive line at center position, who's been a mainstay for about 13 years in the NFL for the Eagles. So now they have to go get a center if they don't use in-house. They re-signed Landon Dickerson, who has played center in the past at Alabama. He was actually, I had him projected as being a center, playing center in the NFL coming out of the draft a couple years back. But they kicked him out to left guard. They drafted Cameron Jurgensen last year at center. So technically, they have a center in Cameron Jurgensen or Landon Dickerson, depending on what they want to do there, or if they want to go out and draft someone. The guy that I thought they could have went after just signed somewhere today, so we'll touch on that in a little bit, or both of them. But so now they're left with that. Then Fletcher Cox retires. So now they have a defense that they need to rework, because Philadelphia, it looks like they're going in win now mode on the offense to give Jalen Hurts some help, because they really haven't had a dominant running back in a while, and they have some holes they need to plug up. They go out and get Saquon Barkley. I think he's a big move. That's a win now move for the Philadelphia Eagles. He replaces DeAndre Swift, who signed with Chicago, who I'll talk about in a little bit. But that's funny that the Giants didn't even try to offer something better. There are reports saying that um the Giants just saw the numbers and said, nope, we're not even offering. And they go out and do something else. But I think the Eagles right now are in one out. They go out and add a Bryce Huff for 3 years on $51.1 million this today. So that is a huge thing. He had a great season last year. He ended up with 10 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 21 quarterback hits. Despite kind of being in a team that rotated through power edge rushers in Jeremiah Johnson, Bryce Huff, Carl Lawson, and those things. So he joins a team that re-signed Brandon Graham, re-signed Brandon Graham for 1 year, and Hassan Riddick and Josh Sweat on that side, who actually, funny enough, have permission to seek trades because I guess they want more money. It gets some cap salary off. We've already seen them make big moves already by, like I said, extending Landon Dickerson, signing Zach Bond to a 1-year deal, letting DeAndre Sweat leave. But they did lose, like I said, Fletcher Cox is gone, retired. So now they're relying on the big bulls that they drafted over the last 2 years in Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. Then you let Avonte Maddox leave in free agency, the cornerback. And so now you're kind of without one of your better slot corners who, yes, he really kind of struggled over the last few years, kind of from that breakout form that he had in recent years. So now you're kind of, how can you replace that? And then a lot of like role players like Bradley Roby, Zach Cunningham, Nate Morrow, Sean Bradley, Rashard Penny. So you lose those guys. Now how do you kind of replace those guys? And like I said, you lose a lot of your depth, and I think that's where the defense kind of, your defense is getting a little bit older. How can you do it? And so you need to find a potential cornerback in Avonte Maddox, if that is in the draft, with a Kool-Aid McGinstry or a Dejean Cooper, from Iowa, or going out and getting I don't know, Isaiah Rodgers, who's coming back from suspension, Zach McPherson, who you can say the cornerback that played in Avonte Maddox's position. So I think the Eagles home run on this. I think this could work out very well. In the past, we have seen running backs not do something. So, and then the Giants, like I said, they answer back by going out and signing running back Singletary from Buffalo, Devin Singletary, who was with he was with Buffalo when he started off his career, and then he goes to, I believe, the Texans, and he has a decent year. He kind of has a little breakout due to Dameon Pierce being injured a lot. Last year we saw him kind of being injury prone, so they go out and get a Devin Singletary for 3 years, $16.5 million. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they go get a running back later on in the draft, like a Jonathan Brooks maybe, who is coming back from injury, who had that ACL tear, or going out and get like another combo, like a Bucky Irving out of Oregon or a Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin in the draft. I think Devin Singletary for 3 years for $16.5 million is a steal. I think right now it's just kind of that. It's kind of like that stopgap, depending on what they do in this free agency, because we're not done yet. There are still running backs out there now, especially with who got released and who I'll mention later. in this free agency, and some of them have gone pretty quickly. So, and the Giants, yes, the Giants. So sticking with the Giants in the NFC East, they go out. They lose Saquon Barkley, and I think that's a big loss on them. I think they should have done more to try to keep him. Then they go out and get, like I said, Devin Singletary. And then they need to kind of bolster that defense. And kind of had a left field, to be honest, what just happened today. The Giants also lose. They also do sign John Runyon to kind of bolster that offensive line as well, because we saw their insides guards were not great since losing Will Hernandez a couple years back. So now I think they go after maybe another running back. And I'll mention the one guy that I think who just got released today because of another free agent signing in Aaron Jones for the Green Bay Packers. They released him today due to the fact that the Green Bay Packers did sign Josh Jacobs, and I will talk about Josh Jacobs in a little bit. But the Giants lose Xavier McKinney on the defensive side and at free safety, who was hinting that he wasn't going to be back, depending on what would happen with Wink Martindale. And unfortunately, they got rid of Wink Martindale, and I think that was a sign that Xavier McKinney was probably going to stay. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. He signs with the Green Bay Packers for 4 years, $68 million, who replaces Darnell Savage on that backside, and Green Bay secondary, who, honestly, I didn't think would stay with the Packers. And they go out and get a field general in Xavier McKinney. Not the best year last year that he had. He did have a down year, but he did from his rookie year. But he's honestly not a bad player. He's very good at what he does when reading the offense. Good cover, safety, can play free safety as well. I think that's a great thing. And then probably the best move that the Giants did go do today was doing a sign and trade for Carolina's pass rusher, Brian Burns. Brian Burns got traded for a second round and a fifth round pick to the Giants, from the Giants to the Panthers, and then signed a 5-year extension worth $150 million, with 87 of it guaranteed as part of the deal, going to the Giants. He had a great year last year with 8 sacks, 50 total tackles, 16 total tackles for a loss, 18 quarterback hits. And with that being said, with Carolina being so bad, he's a great pass rusher. We've seen great strides out of him playing coming out of Florida State. He's a beast. He's an animal. He can get to the quarterback quick. He's very good. He can line up in a 3-4 or 4-3, because Carolina played both formations during his time in Carolina. He's good in it. Great in the stance and his technique, if it's a 3 technique or 4 technique. And then he goes out, comes in, and they trade for him, which I'm shocked, because I know Carolina franchise tag and trying to make a deal with him, but I know there was reports that he was cut off negotiation extensions because they just couldn't come to a deal. He gets traded. Now he gets paired up with Kayvon Thibodeau. Giants, he kind of broke out in his second season with New York. Kayvon showing why he was the 6th overall pick. Now you get him on one side and Brian Burns on the other. That's kind of going to be I think that's what Kayvon needed. He needed someone to take that pressure off of him, because now they have to double team one of them. They can't double team both of them. They can only really double team one of them. Yes, you do lose Christian Wilkins, who I'll talk about in a little bit, in free agency, but I just like what the Giants did there. They go out and get him. Another big move, Atlanta Falcons going out and signing Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins on a 4-year, $180 million, coming off an Achilles tear, for a 35-year-old who was having a really good season last year. He threw for over 2,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, for the most at the time when he got hurt. He rehabs. Now he's going to Atlanta to become the new quarterback for the Falcons. The Falcons had my boy Desmond Ridder and had Marcus Mariota over the last couple years, and they struggled with both of them. They went 7-10 both seasons, and the quarterback play wasn't great. And it sucks to say that because I'm a big Desmond Ridder fan coming out of UC, but he just wasn't the answer. I don't think he'll ever really be that starting quarterback. I think he'll be a really good backup quarterback. He's more of a field general, kind of dictate the game, not really do too much flashiness, and kind of just maintain the game and try to get points. Kirk Cousins comes in, veteran experience. He can do well with the weapons around him. Hopefully, the new coach and Raheem Morris can utilize Bijan Robinson like Arthur Smith did not. You have Kyle Pitts. Try to give him a quarterback that can throw to him better. You got Drake London already. They just are missing that third weapon on the receiving. And I think if they can find it, they'll be really good. Now, kind of going through first day, there was a lot of moves. Like I said, Kirk Cousins, Saquon. And then talking about the Packers, they go out and they were interested in trying to get a new running back last year in the last couple seasons because they were kind of ready. They kind of knew that they might lose both of their running backs soon. And they go out and get a Josh Jacobs for 4 years, $48 million. And yes, Josh Jacobs had a decent season last year. He was injured a few times. He did play I think he did well. Is he an upgrade over Aaron Jones? He's younger. I'll give you that. I think they're just two similar style runners, both power backs. Will just pound the ball, but when they can break out for long runs, they can. They both do have injury history, so there is that issue there. And the Packers did need running backs because they were losing A.J. Dillon to free agency this year. So they go out and get Josh Jacobs, and they end up cutting Aaron Jones, who just, I think, will find on his feet. I think maybe the Bengals, if they cut Joe Mixon, might need him. Maybe Buffalo, because Buffalo's been looking for another running back. Baltimore's another option where Aaron Jones can go. New England, there's that option, but there's so many teams that could use Aaron Jones. But Josh Jacobs signing with them I think, could have a decent year in that scheme with Jordan Love, kind of take the pressure off of him. Another move is Chicago going out and signing DeAndre Swift for 3 years, $24.5 million. I love that move. They really haven't had a running back really since Matt Forte, to be honest. If we think about this kind of logically, you really haven't had one. Other than, yes, you could say Dave Montgomery, but Dave Montgomery was always that average running back when he was on Chicago. He wasn't that flashy. He was inconsistent, but then he moves on to Detroit and he has this breakout season and he was amazing, which he did. Yes, he had that injury history, but that's because of the workload they did in the beginning of the season. But DeAndre Swift is not a bad option. Big potential coming out of Georgia in college. I liked him a lot. I think he could do something there. Another move is Tony Pollard headed to Tennessee for 3 years, $24 million, which I'm kind of shocked. I didn't think he was going to go there. I thought he was going to resign with Dallas. But it honestly is a good steal, because especially with Tennessee probably going to lose Derrick Henry this offseason. They're unlikely to resign him. I think that was a good move for them. And then I think he can provide something kind of fits more of the new scheme in Brian Callahan's system. He likes that running pass game running back. That Derrick Henry, yes, he is a good running back. He's a decent catcher in the passing game, but not like Tony Pollard is. Tony Pollard is more of a elusive back that is really good in the passing game, as is in the run game. But Derrick Henry is more of that traditional back. But I just don't think. I think Derrick Henry's time is done. I think they're trying to move on. And then the Commanders go out and sign Austin Eckler from the Chargers, 2 years, $11 million. I feel like this deal was a steal just because of his injury history over the last few years, which he's had issues with. My only thing is this more of a prove it deal? Because maybe there's it's a 2 year deal, so maybe he can try to get better, get his stats back up, trying to show that he's more durable, and then maybe he goes from there, which could happen. And then, like I mentioned, Christian Wilkins leaving New York and going to Las Vegas Raiders, who he had a breakout season last year. He played very well. He hits the open market. I thought there was a potential franchise tag right there for the Dolphins. Sorry, he didn't play for the Giants. He played for the Dolphins. I want to kind of apologize. I did say he played for the Giants. He did not play for the Giants. He played for the Dolphins, which I thought they were going to franchise tag him. He had a career high in sacks. He had 9 sacks last year with 23 quarterback hits. And then he goes pairs up with Max Crosby in Las Vegas. Finally gives the Raiders another 1-2 punch, because I just don't think they had that with just Max Crosby. They were missing that. Chandler Jones got cut at the beginning of the season, which didn't really live up to the hype since coming over from Arizona and New England when his time's there, which unfortunately that wasn't great. And then Tampa Bay goes out later today and trades cornerback Carlton Davis to Detroit for a 3rd round pick and a 6th round pick and a 2025 6th round pick. So now Detroit owns that's what they received from Tampa that's what they traded to get Carlton Davis. So now Carlton Davis that's what they needed. They needed that. I think they needed that second cornerback that they lacked from Cameron Sutton and Emmanuel Mosley last year. They didn't really have that true cornerback one. So now they go get one, and then I feel like they still could get one in their draft. The Niners replaced Chase Young with Floyd Leonard, who kind of has had a resurgence over the last few years. He signs a 2-year deal worth $20 million that can go up to a max of $24 million. He had a career high with sacks at 10.5. He's kind of had a breakout year over the last few years. He's had 9 sacks in at least 4 years. He started his year off with Chicago and was the Chicago, and he wasn't really that great. And then he goes to the Rams and Buffalo and kind of finds himself again. And I think that's a really good signing, especially because they wouldn't be able to bring Chase Young back. Another big move. The Cowboys ended up losing Armstrong and Tyler Dorrance Armstrong and Tyler Biadasz to the Commanders. Dorrance Armstrong signed a 3-year deal worth $45 million, and Tyler Biadasz signed a 3-year, $30 million, kind of bolstering that new era in Washington and pairing back up with former coach Dan Quinn. Also, another big move is the Rams go out and bolster their offensive line by signing Josiah Jackson for 3 years, $51 million from Detroit. He is one of those mainstay left guards on that really good offensive line for Detroit. It will be interesting to see where they go out and kind of address that hole there, because that was a big loss for them, but a great game for the Los Angeles Rams. Jaguars go out and pounce on Gabe Davis for 3 years and $39 million. Now you're looking at Buffalo needs to replace that other receiver. Kind of saw a breakout year, honestly, from him this year. He scored 7 times and had 746 yards last year, and he averaged 16.6 yards per reception. So he did have some inconsistency, but he came up big when it mattered during the postseason. I think him being there, I think that kind of shows depending on what's going to happen if Calvin Ridley comes back. I could see this being just an insurance. I know Trevor Lawrence likes Calvin Ridley. I could see Jacksonville retaining Calvin Ridley. If not, Buffalo might be interested in getting Calvin Ridley in free agency, but this could mean a thing that they are getting ready to move on from Calvin Ridley. But Gabe Davis, not bad. Jacksonville also went out and signed Darnell Savage from Green Bay, who left in free agency. And we talked about Green Bay replacing him with Xavier McKinney. We've seen a lot of moves, signing, releasing, like I talked about. Aaron Jones was released, and then left tackle after 11 seasons, David Bakhtiari has got cut, released from the Green Bay Packers. Now they are in the market for a left tackle. It is sad. He was a really good outside left tackle. This move does save up about $20.9 million in cap space. He was scheduled to have about a $40 million cap hit next year if they would have kept him. He has had history with injuries over the last 3 years. If he can stay healthy, he's a really good left tackle. Dallas needs a left tackle because Tyron Smith isn't coming back. Miami would have needed one, but Teron Armstead did say he is returning. So there is that in that situation. The Vikings next. Yes, they lose Kirk Cousins, so now they have to address that in the draft or signing a veteran right now. That might change depending on where they are in the draft. Will they make a play for Justin Fields? Because Justin Fields' market has kind of gotten smaller since free agency starts. But back to the Vikings. The Vikings lose Kirk Cousins. They go out and bolster that defense, getting edge rusher Jonathan Grenard, who had a breakout season this season in Houston, signed a 4-year, $76 million with $42 million guaranteed. He got a big payday. He had a great season last year, 12.5 sacks, which is amazing. He was that 1-2 punch with Will Anderson Jr. He showed why he is a big time player. They also go out and get Andrew Van Ginkel from Miami for $20 million, $14 million guaranteed, and they also bring in middle linebacker Blake Cashman for 3 years, up to $25.5 million from Houston as well. I think we kind of saw these big moves. Minnesota's kind of going in a different direction on that defensive side. We saw big plays from Ivan Pace, who was an undrafted free agent starting at the middle linebacker. You're bringing Cashman to play alongside him, Van Ginkel on the outside. And then I think the big move, Jonathan Grenard, he was ranked third best pass rusher in this offseason behind Josh Allen and Brian Burns, who both got franchise tag. Brian Burns moving on, Josh Allen staying with Jacksonville. But Vikings needed a pass rusher. I have been picking a pass rusher in my earlier mock drafts, and now going towards a quarterback due to Kirk Cousins not coming back. But they are losing Darrell Hunter, I think, who is probably going to be done in Minnesota. We've seen Deion Dawkins re-sign with the Buffalo Bills for 3 years, $60 million. That was a good move. And also the Colts going out and re-signing Michael Pittman for the Indianapolis Colts. And also the Colts giving Zaire Franklin a $3 million extension to kind of replace Darius Leonard as that main middle linebacker in Indiana. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we've seen a lot of moves from them, from the likes of cutting Mitch Trubisky, Presley Harvin, Mason Cole, Patrick Peterson, going out and getting Tremont Edmonds back, who spent a year in Philadelphia and Tennessee, and going out and signing Russell Wilson for $1.25 million. Russell Wilson signs with Pittsburgh. This is a big move for them. They bring in a kind of a quarterback. It's more of a prove it deal probably, because he really didn't show us flashes last year. He struggled in Denver. His playmaking ability kind of wasn't there, like we've seen in Seattle, and that's because he's getting older. He did improve a little bit under Sean Payton, but not terribly good. That's why he got benched at the end of. Well, he also got benched at the end of the season the last 2 games due to they didn't want him getting injured if they were going to try to trade him, and he just wasn't playing well. So now Wilson joins for $1.25 million to the Steelers, prove a deal. He comes in, and now he is kind of he could start, he might not. Depends on how training camp goes. He comes in and pushes Kenny Pickett because I think Kenny Pickett is still a good quarterback. I just think he needs time in a new system, and it's going to take some time. And we're talking about people are saying, "Oh, we need a new quarterback. We need a quarterback." You're getting Arthur Smith, who not a good really good offensive coordinator, not a good head coach. And people keep saying, "Oh, look what he did in Atlanta. He's not that good. He's not that great. He didn't use Bijan Robinson. Well, he's an OC now. He was an OC in Tennessee when Ryan Tannehill. Everybody said Ryan Tannehill's done. He's not going to do anything. He goes to Tennessee and look what he does. He rejuvenates his career. Could we see this from a Russell Wilson? Can we see this from Kenny Pickett? Give him time. And I think Russell Wilson's going to come in here and mentor Kenny Pickett. Maybe it is good that Kenny Pickett is benched as the second string this year because he can learn under. We've seen quarterbacks do this. Alex Smith come in, start for a couple years, then Patrick Mahomes takes over, learns from him. Same thing with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. Same thing with well, you can't actually say that. I'm not gonna say that, but you get my point. Certain quarterbacks come in, become that veteran, and learn under each other, and then they start. Because sometimes you see these like a Josh Rosen or a Sam Darnold or honestly a Zach Wilson get thrown into the starting job too early, and it doesn't help them develop better because then they struggle during the season and it hurts their confidence, and then they never can retain that. So having them sit under someone isn't always a bad idea. Example, Josh Allen sitting under Tyrod Taylor before Josh Allen took over. Here's another one. There are many different things that we see quarterbacks being thrown in too early or sitting for a year and then getting the starting job, which I could see either way from Russell Wilson. We saw Eric Armstead get cut from the 49ers. That's a big move from the 49ers. They don't have the money right now to re-sign everybody and try to retain some of these key veterans. So they had to go out. So now there's a potentially loss of Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, and Chase Young all in the same season. And really, that's a big loss coming off of the Super Bowl run that they had. And you kind of knew that was going to happen. Baker Mayfield, 3 years, $100 million deal, headed to stay with Tampa Bay as well. I like that move as well. He had a great year. He kind of played back into the conversation of getting that contract from Tampa, and I think he 100% deserved it. He played very well last year. We kind of saw the old Baker, to be honest, playing wise. But he set career highs in touchdowns and passing yards, and he took the Tampa Bay to the playoffs, which is great. I think keep being able to retain him, Antoine Winfield, Mike Evans. I like to see what they do at the linebacker position with Levante Davis and Devin White also hitting free agency, so it'd be interesting what they do at the linebacker position. The Bears signed Kevin Byron from the Eagles for 2 years, $15 million. I like that pairing. They pair him up with Jawan Brisker, so they have that 1-2 punch that we haven't seen since we saw that with Eddie Jackson and Adrian Amos of Chicago, who also Eddie Jackson did get released earlier on in the offseason. We saw a couple days ago, Mac Jones was traded to Jacksonville as a back to Jacksonville. He will now be the backup for Trevor Lawrence, and then will hit free agency next year. I think Mac Jones will be another career backup at this point. I don't think he showed flashes in his first season, but he needs to be in the right system, and I don't know what team will give him that. Maybe he gets another chance, but there could be a time where he might just be a backup for the most part. We saw Browns trade for Jerry Jeudy from the Broncos for a 5th and a 6th round in 2024 this year's draft, which will be good because they help get Deshaun Watson and Mark Cooper another weapon to play with. So that I like that move by them. We saw Justin Madubuike sign a 4-year deal, reported for $98 million. The stay with Baltimore, that is a big pickup. They really need to retain him. He had a great year last year. He can line up as an edge rusher, and he can line up in the middle as a defensive tackle. Like I said, the Steelers had a lot of moves. Allen Robinson was another cut from them, so now they have him cut, and they are looking to shop Deontay Johnson for the right deal. So assets to get back into this draft is a possibility. So those are kind of the biggest moves that I mentioned throughout what's happened over time. The likes of someone I didn't mention is the Commanders also signed Frankie Lavua, 3 years, $36 million from the San Francisco 49ers, and then also the Dolphins go out and sign to replace Andrew Van Ginkel, who they lost in free agency, and Jerome Baker, who got cut due to saving money in cap around $14 million. They cut Jerome Baker, who is reportedly could sign with Pittsburgh. You never know. Pittsburgh are in need of middle linebackers. They've needed one for a while now, but they go out and sign Jordan Brooks, who's had a good career with Seattle, and then Anthony Walker on a 1-year deal as well, bring him over from Indianapolis. Those are some of probably the biggest moves of day one that I kind of touched on. Big moves all over the place. I like what most teams kind of already know who they're talking to. They're already going to talk to people and probably know who they want to bring in. And then when it comes around, they go out and sign the players. We've seen a lot of re-signs as well with the Browns re-signings of Darius Smith and Maurice Hurts. We saw the likes of Mitch Morris, who was that mainstay on that as a center for the Kansas City Chiefs for a lot of their playoff runs. I personally thought he was going to sign with Pittsburgh because they needed that center, which they lost Mason Cole, but they go out and get but they end up Mitch Morris signing a 2-year deal, $10.5 million to join the Jacksonville Jaguars to help kind of bolster that offensive line for Trevor Lawrence to give him that protection, because we saw him getting kind of hit a lot and getting pressured. But yeah, we saw a lot of moves there. But there are still a lot of free agents still out there in the likes of Justin Simmons, Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Odell Beckham Jr., just to name a few. So there's a huge list of them. David Bakhtiari, Tyron Smith on the offensive side. So yeah, and to end this episode, to end it on Cincinnati Bengals, my team, Cincinnati. T. Higgins has requested a trade from Cincinnati. Hopefully, they can try to find something to work out with. Right now, they haven't engaged in any talks since March of 2023. But hopefully, the Bengals can find something. I know they rewarded Joe Burrow with a 5-year extension last year. That was later on in the free agency. Now, with the market being how it is, the receiver court isn't great, so he might have a lot of trade offers to Cincinnati because how weak the wide receiver room is in free agency due to Michael Pittman and Mike Evans re-signing with their teams. There is interesting to see how Cincinnati handles this. Do they wait till the draft or wait till after the draft, or wait before, or do it now during free agency? It'll be interesting. But yeah, there are a lot of free agents still out there, like Darrell Hunter is one option that could happen, but I know he could be going there depending on what happens. Justin Simmons, Leonard Williams, DJ Reader, Cameron Curls, who had a big year. Stephon Gilmore could sign another 1-year deal due to his age. Kendall Fuller, Tre'Davious White was released. interesting could be a Steeler move because they need, like I said, they need quarterback help. Patrick Queen is still out there. Chase Young is another one that could be on the move. Pretty much all the big running back or offensive players, Derrick Henry, Calvin Ridley, Marquise Brown, Tyron Smith, like I mentioned, are kind of still out there. So you never know who needs what. We'll still probably see a lot of moves tomorrow and really up to the draft. So I'll try to keep up as best I can and let you know when stuff is happening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a lot to talk about. There's a lot of moves happening. It's usually what happens with free agency on the first couple of days. A lot of moves at the same time. Hopefully my bank, I don't know, we did get Gene Stone for a 2-year deal, $15 million deal, safety, kind of bring that veteran presence in. We saw Lions go out and bolster their defense by getting Marcus Davenport from Minnesota, who had a decent year last year. He hasn't had that type of season that he had when he was with the Saints and got that big money move to Minnesota. We saw Grover Stewart go back to Indianapolis. So there's so much moves that happened today that I could spend a ton of time on. I just want to hit with the big moves that people will know, players that they'll know, and kind of point on some of those. I'll have my mock draft once 3.0 post free agency once this kind of wraps up and we get closer to the draft in April. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. This episode will be out probably tomorrow sometime. Hopefully you guys enjoy. And I'll see you guys soon. And we'll probably have soccer out here soon. Probably at the end of the week or the weekend. But I hope you guys enjoy. See y'all soon. Peace.